Hey, Danu, just testing my audio. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear, Julian.
All right, excellent.
Yeah, lots going on, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm excited for the presentation this evening by Mia and or Robin.
yes, me too. Me too. Um, uh, can you, I was just making notes of things I should be reminding people of or reminding myself of. But if you can think of anything, you go ahead and jump in, okay? And add
Yeah, do,
add
do you have the community engagement event for Higginbotham Flats on your list?
I do. Well, I don't, but we could definitely let's talk about that, okay?
Okay, yeah, I just want PARAB to know the date so we can
Yeah,
get as many PARAB and Save the Flats folks there as possible.
right. I'll send out a message out to the Save the Flats folks. It, Perhaps I can get at least one of them to show up since I won't be there. Uh,
Okay. Yeah, that
yeah.
sounds awesome.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds good. Yeah, Julian, if you want to talk about that, the community engagement piece, and also if you just want to mention to Mia and Robin about the creating a flyer for Cassandra for the a promo flyer for the information blurb that she's going to put out, the
Yeah,
information
and
officer.
actually, we have Mia on now. Hey,
Hey,
Mia.
Mia, hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
Going well.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes, we have started the flyer and we just are sort of fine tuning it and we'll have it to you this week to review.
Awesome.
Yes.
Hi, Matthew.
Hey, Matthew.
Hi,
Hello.
Matthew.
All right. So let's see. Um, can since I have Jillian and Mia here, can I just switch gears real quick and talk about Soda Springs Park? Is that
Sure.
okay? Yeah, I just sent out I just sent out a quick little email because I wasn't sure where we were at with the process of getting some of the um
Playground
playground,
equipment.
yeah, that needs to be made to customize per order. So I didn't know where we were at with that because I know lead times were really pretty far out. So I didn't know if we had proceeded with that, Jillian.
No, so I believe we're having the contractor, or I'm pretty sure it's the contractor's going to be ordering everything. Is that right, Mia? I know we weren't going to do it through the city at this point.
That is correct.
Okay.
And as soon as we get a contractor on board, I think that's when ordering of that equipment would happen. Just because of those lead times, Danu.
Right, I know. That's why I was kind of hoping that city could jump in real quick and pull the trigger and get that going. I mean, 'cause we're just like in September, beginning of September, and if they start in October, we're 3 weeks ahead. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, I that's just me as your parent volunteer. So I don't know, Jillian, is that kind of a final thing that the city is not going to be laying hands on that? We're just gonna throw it into the contractor's court?
Yeah, that's what I decided to do. I did not have the bandwidth to go through ordering that. And we're being asked to start as soon as Coffin Races is over
Um,
with Soda Springs. So we could probably have the contractor start procuring the playground equipment now and then start like construction after Coffin Races,
hmm,
just because of the impact on that event that the construction might have had.
right. Well, if you guys can come up with a way to expedite that to get it going, but it sounds like that the options are limited at this point then, right, Jillian?
Yeah, but the good news is we have at least 3 bids for the project.
Yeah,
So that's
that's true.
exciting.
Yeah, that's true. So sorry, Parab. I was just talking about the Soda Springs Park playground project and scheduling and things of that nature, since we got 3 bids for the build today. So, so tonight we have attending, Candace asked if I could like do a roll call. So I will say that Candace, Jan Johnson is here.
Here.
I'm here. Tim Bresnahan is here. And Anthony Lane is here. And Chris Grow is here. And I know that Natalie Johnson can't make it tonight. Colin McAllister is out. And I haven't heard from Dave Crawford. So,
Rebecca Wood, am here as well.
oh yes, hello Rebecca. Very
Hi.
good. Is there anybody out there who I missed? Okay, with that, then we have a quorum, and I would like to call this meeting to order at 6:03. The first order of business is to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Rebecca. I will
I can
second.
second that.
Okay, great. Thanks,
It's
Chris.
Chris.
Yep, thank you.
Also, Jillian and Matthew are present,
Yes, correct. I'm sorry.
and Mia and Robin.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome. And they
Yeah.
are from Horde Copeland Mocked.
Very
I
good.
know, as I was the former secretary, I know that this is helpful.
Yes, thank you. You jump in anytime, Chris. Everybody, you can all just jump in anytime. Okay, so the agenda is approved. Our next item of business is approval of our minutes from August 5th, 2024. And I'll entertain a motion from someone to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes as entered.
Okay, thank you, Tim Bresnahan. Can I get a second on that?
Jan Johnson, second.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jan. Okay, minutes are approved. We have no public, oh, is anybody in the public comments? Okay, if not, then I would like to turn the presentation over to Horde Copeland and Mock, Robin Bartling and Mia Requains to go over the Manitou Overlook Park, Higginbotham Flats project.
All right, well, nice to see you all. So I just wanted to start off by what our goal is for this evening. We have 3 different concepts that we brought to share with you. And the goal of today is to review those concepts and provide any feedback. And the next step will be to go to the community meeting on October 5th or 3rd.
I think third.
3rd. Yeah, October 3rd. And that will be an in-person meeting. And right after that, we will share the same information online and open that up for 2 weeks for the community as well. And so really today is there anything that you don't feel comfortable sharing to the community? That's kind of what we want to hear. And we will make those modifications before we go to the community meeting on October 3rd. We don't have another meeting with your group until after that community meeting, which would be once we do the community meeting, we'll gather that feedback. We'll have the online survey. We'll combine all that information we get from the public outreach. And then that's when we'll come back to this group to share our findings and talk about recommendations on how we move towards one concept plan, which would be our next step after the community engagement. So, so with that, anybody have any questions on that before Mia will jump in and share the options, and then we can feel free to interject, ask questions along the way. But yeah, that's our goal for today.
Robin, is there a date set for the next time you meet with PARAB?
So we do have a schedule that we've put together. We have, and we've shared this previously, Danu, but we did update it now that we have a community engagement meeting scheduled. So this is that schedule. So October 3rd would be that in-person event. And then October 4th, we would release the community survey. We like to not release that until we've had that in-person event. And then we'll have that open for 2 weeks. Give us a little bit of time, a few days, just to get it all digested and combined. And then we are proposing, because it doesn't exactly align with your first Monday meetings, in order to get through the schedule, we are proposing, you can see when it says special, that those are not aligning with your monthly meetings. So I think that is something, and we'll share this, we'll send this out too after this meeting to get your feedback, because we want to make sure that those are realistic. And I don't know what that means for you, if you kind of modify your schedule, or if it's another meeting. But I know from our understanding, the goal was to get through this entire process and city council approval before the end of the year. And so we've been trying to kind of crunch things to hold that. And right now we're showing the city council meeting on December 17th.
Okay, December 17th. Okay, great. We're cutting it pretty close, huh?
I know I know when you start to add in all these dates, you're like, oh, we were like, oh, we're just
Yeah.
gonna keep squishing that a little bit.
Yeah, good thing you guys are super women. Okay,
Yeah, we'll send this out after this meeting too, just so you can look at the dates a little closer and make sure it all works.
Yeah, and give us some feedback if you have concerns about the schedule at all, and we'll work with you to get it figured out.
we could just do Zoom meetings again, though. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm assuming that would work best for all of PARAB too, who can make it on those special meetings. Well, I don't know. You guys all have to check your schedule. Okay,
Yeah, we'll send it out, and then just let
Yeah.
us know. Obviously,
Okay.
as we get into October and a little later, we start to run into some holidays, and so we know that some schedules change a little bit with meetings, but we were trying to work around those too. So,
Right. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Robin.
yep.
Okay, carry on.
All right, I'll jump in and get us kicked off. So the first 2 pages that I'm going to talk about are just a brief overview of sort of a site analysis, big picture. We know that there's a lot of really cool cultural things happening in the area, so we just wanted to sort of zoom out, big picture, some things that are happening nearby, as well as access to the site as far as vehicular access and possible pedestrian access, and just making sure we know what's happening just in the surrounding vicinity adjacent to those 2 parcels. So that is the zoomed out version. I have a zoomed in version which has the 2 parcels that we're talking about, as well as some of the neighboring parcels. We have existing vegetation sort of outlined in a dark green. We have sort of the main views that are overlooking towards the mountains and Engelman Canyon. We also have noted certain things in relation to where the art piece that Manuel Polito pointed out to us as far as the blessed location for where that would be. And we have those exact coordinates that we've plugged into the site analysis. And so we wanted to make sure we were working around that specific point. We've also noted some unique things as far as existing boulders on the site, which is sort of these dark blue circular areas. The existing lot that's sort of on the adjacent parcel, and just some slope, downward slope notes and then some guardrail information. The existing guardrail is sort of noted here in light green. So just basically overview of the site and what we have working for us as far as amenities that are sort of around the site. We also noted sound, obviously coming from the highway, making sure that that's addressed on the different concepts. And we've also noted some specifics that we learned from Polito as far as the canyon, the neighboring mountains, but then also these very culturally significant rock formations that are visible from the site that are he's still researching some of that, but it sounds like these are sacred locations that we definitely want to bring attention to.
Gog and Magog, PARAB.
What was that, Danu?
That they're Gog and Magog. That's what.
Oh,
it's
right.
been known. That's what they've been called for years.
It sounds like the name might actually be changing depending on some of the cultural findings that they're looking into.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to jump to concept number 1. This one is called Ripple and Rhythm, and this one is focusing a lot on movement of water, sound, and earth. So having sort of these main significant elements in a site highlighted throughout the experience of the park. So first, just to take note, we've explored a few different options with the parking lots as well. Knowing that we can't overlap parking with the helipad, we had to get a little creative with squeezing everything in, but I think we came up with some good options. So just take note of that as well. So this one has 28 potential spaces, 90-degree parking as you come in and exit through the same point. And then the helipad is kind of pushed to the north side. As you get out of your car, you have an option to use the compostable toilet right there at the entry. But the main entry experience is you have some planting, there's a potential for some art. And then as you're entering the site, you have, if you enter the site through your bike, you can park your bike right at this main entry and then have some really cool artful signage as you're walking through the site. But really the main feature is water. And so you're kind of following this meandering path as you're walking through these really cool different walkways. You've got some wooden bridges. You have the cobble swale taking water from the north of the site and bringing it down to the south. We also have some unique features like these artful rock formations that you can actually plant around and inside. And we'll show you some images on the later page, but we thought because this is such a beautiful, artful space, the plants and the rock formations and the water themselves can add to that art throughout the whole site. So we have sort of an ode to the water, earth, and planting, but then we also have an ode to the animals of the area. So we have the hawk nesting platform, the bee habitats. We also have sort of as we meander south, we have another really cool feature of this overlook shade structure that has water collection, and it can go directly into some rain chains, some steel drum rain drums. So as it rains, it can create music almost, and having some smaller artistic rain barrels as well. So you can collect some of that water and use it to water some of the neighboring plants. And all three concepts honor the ethno-botanical garden concept that I think everyone really liked from the beginning. So just having those culturally relevant plants are going to be in every single concept. And then also we have Polito's sculpture right here near the overlook. And that would honor the Native American tribes of the region, and then having sort of a north, south, east, west boulder configuration so you can sit at some of those key points and admire his beautiful work. We also have some little shade structures around with additional bench seating and some educational signage throughout the whole park as well, including some steel tube viewers so you can actually stand at the main overlook and look at the Gog and Magog geological formations as well. Other little things, including adding additional berm and planting type of things, but everything that's circled in blue, these are future locations of art pieces as well. So that's something that was noted during the kickoff, that we want to be able to add art to these parks as well. So I'll pause there for a second and then see if anyone has questions before we move to the image board.
I have a
Feel free to-
question.
Yeah, of course.
How tall is the rainwater structure?
This would probably be at a normal shade structure height, maybe 10, 12 feet
Yeah, 12
tall.
feet.
Okay. Would that be the same with the shade structure with the swinging benches too? That would be 12 feet also?
Those, yeah, they'd probably be similar height. They might be a little bit lower.
So maybe 10 to
Depends on
12
the roof
feet?
structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might be slanting a little bit too, so there's maybe a higher and a lower point.
Gotcha.
And I can actually jump to some images to help visualize some of that. So these are some examples of some shade structures. These are more like pergolas, but these are just for inspiration purposes. Doesn't mean that we having some really cool sort of tiered options and ones that would slope and kind of collect rainwater at one particular end. Sound therapy, so having the large chimes, maybe some smaller chimes throughout. Having rain chains, the steel drums that ping different sounds as the rain hits it, maybe some larger drums as well. Wildlife habitats, you can get really cool and creative with some of those bee habitats, and obviously the hawk platforms are really cool. Rock formations, we loved some of these images of just creating sort of a mimicking of the geology in the area, just these really cool different elevations of rocks kind of protruding from the earth, and then being able to plant within them would be a really neat little amenity. The cobble swale, we could have larger boulders, smaller cobble, just kind of, even when it's a dry event, you can still appreciate the beauty of just a dry cobble swale, and then little footbridges throughout. And we can get really creative with educational signage as well. So really neat opportunities to highlight certain points, direct your eye to certain areas, and then learning about the different plant species. All right, so that was option 1, ripple and rhythm. Option 2, feel free to stop me at any point if you have questions. Option 2 is called A Blossoming Journey. And this one was inspired by the word journey. So as you're entering the space, there's a lot of different opportunities, not only to be on the trail itself, but to meander off of the trail and kind of create your own journey. We also were inspired by the indigenous labyrinth pattern. So the main feature as you're walking into this space would be a labyrinth. And so you're having this peaceful moment of self-discovery as you're walking through the labyrinth. You can have a really neat shade structure with picnic tables underneath, so you can have larger gatherings here. And then walking through the area, it focuses not only on the journey of walking through the space, but also making it a little bit more of a garden area. So the plants are a main focus, and so there's additional plant supports that are very artistic and beautiful looking throughout the garden space. You have wooden logs, you have stump seating, you have flagstone steppers, and just a lot of natural materials as you're walking through the space. And then as you're getting towards the south area, you have a shade structure with and then Polito's beautiful structure in the middle which you can kind of approach from different sides and opportunities and kind of sit and admire not only his structure, but have a clear view of the Engelman Canyon viewscape, with additional bench seating and educational signage around that area as well. So this one was very much creating your own path basically throughout the space. We also have smaller hawk nesting boxes, opportunities for future art pieces. We have a large rain barrel for actually collecting a good amount of water and being able to water some of the plants in this area. Oh, I didn't talk about the parking lot, but this one was a little bit different in terms of having 60-degree parking. We don't have as many spaces, so there's only 14 spaces with this particular design, but we just wanted to explore that option of a one-way in, one-way out opportunity that goes sort of around the helipad. One of the questions we had was whether or not we'd even be able to cross this particular parcel. If not, we thought you could also cross in through this point and just lose a couple of spaces. And then we have to move the vault toilet further south. But this was an option where we had the vault toilet more towards the front entry experience, having bike racks, picnic table, entry signage, and then sort of almost a small park in itself before you even get to the actual park.
Right.
So
Comment?
different kind of concept, but
Yeah. Mia?
Yeah.
So you asked if we can cross that person's private property, and probably the answer is no.
probably no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we figured that was probably going to be the case, but we wanted to bring it up anyways as an option. So if we do this particular angled parking, sounds like we'd have to come in from this side into the property
Yeah,
and
correct.
lose a couple spaces. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, and then some imagery to help visualize some things. So garden features, a lot of plant supports and pergolas and things like that to just help some of the more vinier plants grow, and then just bring attention to them as well. It kind of segregates different areas if we're trying to explore certain species. Flagstone stepper walks, log seating, gathering spaces, a lot of really nice natural materials. And I know having larger gathering spaces, either for yoga or gathering events, you could just have it right on the ground. It doesn't have to be anything particular. I think people are pretty flexible, but it's more of a flex space for people just to come and gather. And then even the labyrinth itself could be a bunch of different options as far as materials. It could be flagstone with crusher fines. It could be stone. It could be actual planting or rocks directly on the earth. Lots of options there. Wildlife nesting. So again, really creative stuff. We could have the smaller hawk boxes, bug hotels, bee habitats, really beautiful formations there. Rain barrels come in all different shapes, colors, and sizes. And then one thing I didn't mention was having sort of a rope and post barrier sort of along the western side of the site, just to keep people from going too far close to the edge. And it just kind of creates a nice little guiding edge for people. And then swing benches, lots of different kinds of swing benches. And even wind sculptures that kind of spin in the wind just to add little dynamic elements, and shade structures. That was a blossoming journey. Last one, and we can go back through these at any point, but this one is also explored the coming from the north side, but if we're not able to cross that property, that's totally fine. We could come in, sorry for it being a little bit blurry, but coming in from that same location on the east, maybe cutting a few parking spaces off this top area, but this one actually had the most amount of spaces. So it had 34 spaces to begin with. We might lose a few when we come in from the east here, but having more of the parking along the western side, having some boulders to divide the space so people don't try and park in the helipad area. And then having the vault toilet near the parking, a little overhead entry signage, and then as you enter the space, this one's called An Artful History. We were trying to make a circular sort of infinity loop that brings people back to the beginning of where they started. So this was an opportunity where we thought it'd be really neat to have a history painted throughout the site in different ways. So the first two concepts were crusher fines, walkways. This one is concrete, but just to talk about that material a little bit, there's ways we can engrave and sandblast some really cool images and quotes and things in the concrete itself as you're walking around. And then there's larger plazas of crusher fines paving sort of off of the walkway. So as you enter the space, there's a really neat custom shade structure with picnic tables, some really cool rock formations that kind of allow us to play with the grades a little bit. So you could berm up a little bit, slope down a little bit, and then have sort of your planting material all throughout that space. We have some raised garden beds, some more plaza space. This one with Polito's sculpture, we thought we'd really enhance the idea of the north, south, east, west with the different animals that he had spoken about. So bear being north, you could engrave or something on the most northern flagstone stepper, and then south was wolf, buffalo was west, eagle was east, and then you could really tell that story within the flagstone steppers, have planting sort of meandering around it, and then have some large farm tables where you could have a larger event of people gathering and enjoying the beauty of the space with some custom shade structures, rain barrels at each of those shade structures as well. And then sloping down a little bit to a lower platform that has a large shade structure, some really nice benches, and then sort of a rock wall formation that you kind of see at national parks. So you can walk up to the rock wall, look out over the view, and then have some educational signage there. In all of the concepts, we also have a potential for a future south connection. And this one has bike racks along the south as well. And all of the concepts do explore the berms and making sure that we have enough berms to help block some of the sound from the highway. This one also has birdhouses within the berm itself. I should also note that all concepts are attempting to preserve and protect all of the existing trees on the site as well. This one, I think, did take out one tree, but all of the others have preserved all of the vegetation on the site. This one also had gabion seat walls. So just to give you an idea, some of the imagery, we have some really cool earth berms, also playing with that rock formation, etching and storytelling throughout the whole site, both in the concrete, in the signage, and in sort of the educational opportunities. The walls themselves could tell the story of sort of the history of the area. We could get really creative and fun with some of those patterns. Wildlife nesting, again, beautiful opportunities for bird houses. It could be a really neat opportunity to put a wildlife camera to watch the birds. Lookout deck, you could have the stone wall, like I mentioned, with viewing scopes, gabion seat walls, raised beds, tables. ornamental fencing, and custom shade structures. So I know that was a lot to go through, but I'll just pause for a second and see if anyone has anything that's really sticking out to them as something you'd like changed.
Mia, this is Jan. I was just
Hi, Jan.
curious, where is the tree, the one tree that you needed to remove? And I imagine there's a specific reason why. Could you
So,
explain?
of course. So on the third concept, there is a tree here, I think it was, that had, let's go back over here. In order to, I think it was, this one was a little bit in the walkway itself. Because of the placement of the berm and where we were trying to get a new berm added, it just adds more grade over the roots. And so that tree probably wouldn't make it. And so we planted a new one in its place. And that was the only tree
Okay,
that
that
got
certainly
affected.
makes sense as to why you would remove it and then replant, but just curious.
Yeah, it's a great question. And really, we don't have to remove that tree if we wanted to just keep it more flat on this side and make a smaller berm further north. But that was the only one on the site that would have been affected.
I think all of them have some really cool qualities. You've really added some nice features.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun to work with and design. I guess a good question would be, do you feel all three concepts would be good to show at the community engagement, or are you feeling like two are stronger than another, or how you're feeling about that?
This is Rebecca. Thanks for putting these together. They're all super awesome. So I'm inclined for the first and the third, just because, but I like the parking of the second one because I think fewer parking is better. And I don't know, because I don't want it to be a parking lot. So I like the parking of the second one, but I like, because we've already kind of done the labyrinth in one of our parks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just really like the rock formations that you have in the first one especially. But you do have that in the second example, you have that an example of the seating in that kind of stadium. Yeah, that one. That's kind of nice because you have the seating built right in, which I kind of like. So there's components for sure of all of them. And I just love how you incorporated all the, the habitats for all the animals, and it's really awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, do you mind if I ask a question?
Hi, Matthew. Yes, of course.
Hello. Will there be irrigation on site for the planting?
Ooh, such a good question. There will not be.
Yeah.
But I think
Is
that's
it
something we should
possible to
talk
get
about.
some? Please.
Yeah,
I think,
I know we
go ahead,
talked
Robin.
about that on site when we were there a few weeks ago. And I think Jillian too, I believe you looked into seeing, or at least we talked about looking in to see if there was a water that we could get. And I believe the answer was no up here.
Correct. The answer is no. There is a hydrant somewhere in the area, but I could not get an answer from our water team as to when that hydrant would be repaired. So I think it's much safer to assume we won't have water going into this than to assume it'll be fixed by the time we start implementing this.
And when you say hydrant, would that be watering from a fire hydrant kind of temporarily, or?
I
Oh.
believe so. I
Okay.
still don't have a lot of details on the water that we might have up there. I know there's some sort of a broken water line right now, and I'm not sure if there are plans to repair it.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know, Matthew, if you have done any of the tanks where you have kind of tanks off the site, and at least then you can fill it with water and then at least it's there so you can water until things are more established.
Yeah, a bit, but I mean, if there's no water on the site, it's me watering out of the back of a 1-ton truck, which is fine. Just something to be
Mhm.
cognizant of as far
Yeah.
as person power moving forward.
Right.
Anyways, just figured I'd ask. I know there's water under the road, but it's probably broken, so that's great. Next
Yeah.
question, and I guess my only other thought is there's a lot of road noise on site. I think it'd be swell to have kind of a green wall on the east northeast berm that are in all your drawings. That way, folks can actually, contemplate and enjoy the site. I do worry about the road noise, so that's all. Sorry.
Oh, you're
No,
good. Thank you.
those are great questions. One of the things we were thinking about as far as this ethnobotanical garden, knowing full well that we possibly don't have irrigation on the site, things might, it'd be experimental space with native plants. And so we could try and get some of these established and see how they do. And it's kind of a learning experience of people walking around the space and seeing and learning that it doesn't have to be green at all times. It's okay that things are brown. It's okay that the space is changing and we have all these other really cool things to look at besides, green plants. But, it's a ever changing, ever sort of evolving garden space. And that itself could be a learning opportunity as well, I would think. But yes, water is great if we can get water.
At least for a couple years, just to,
Yeah,
you
just to
know,
get it
get it
established.
established.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right. Anyone else have any comments or thoughts? And
Hi, if I could jump
hi.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for all this. It's really exciting to see these ideas and excited to see what you come up with, like as you continue the background stuff. Like, did we talk about like spelling of place names and stuff like that? Like, I don't know, Engelman, I think, isn't it? It's usually spelled with 2 N's, Engelman.
Ooh, good catch.
And I agree with Rebecca, but I mean, I think the first and third were great. And I wonder, I mean, if we have like a number of parking spaces in mind, like I wonder if like the first parking lot concept seems to give us kind of the least hard top maybe. And if we didn't need as many spaces, we could actually push, take out 2 or 4 spaces and have a little more like green area there, which would kind of add to the overall park. It seems like it would kind of connect in with that, but I don't know how many parking spaces we want there, but I like that. I don't, but I guess on the other hand, if the parking is on the other, I mean, you can go either way, I guess, but I like the third one, particularly like the viewing platform and like the storytelling aspects of it. So
Yeah. As far as the parking goes, just to jump in on that, and the smallest quantity we have would serve the amenities that we have for the park, based on our experience. Having a few more allows, when you do have those larger gatherings, a few more spaces to accommodate that. And the intent of all these too is not to have a hard surface paved parking, really just utilize what you have there and maybe formalize it with parking blocks so that you get more efficient parking in there, and defining the edges, likely similar to kind of what's going on here and adjacent to it with boulders or something that helps define it and separates it from the helipad as well. So kind of keeping it still very kind of rustic, natural as much as we can while formalizing it to some degree. So to your point, we could definitely have fewer parking spaces than the larger one that we're showing.
It's much easier to take out parking at this point than add parking, since that helipad is defining a lot of that space. But we were surprised that we could squeeze in as much as we did in case you wanted a larger amount. But yeah, that's a great question.
Jim, Chris?
This is Chris. I really like the first and third, similar to Rebecca. I think those designs are just gorgeous, and I thank you so much. I think, you know, you've really captured what we are going for and beyond. I am interested. I love the 4 directions around the sculpture. I think that's super cool. And I do like that figure 8, the infinity loop is super cool. Because that's even sort of a labyrinth in itself, you know, and it could be a meditative walk. I am interested to hear what the community thinks about the parking. I know some folks on the parking and mobility board are really interested. I'm in this project, and I think they're going to like the bike racks, and I think that I guess I'm going to kind of say the opposite of what other folks are saying. I think maximizing the parking could be beneficial for the community, in that we struggle with parking in general, and to have some additional spots up there where people could walk into town for big events, like coffin races or whatever. This could be a resource for that type of thing. So, and trail connectivity and all that. So I think it's great. I guess I like the third one the best, but with some aspects of the first one.
Jim? Candace?
I'm pleased. I don't think I have anything to add other than I can appreciate that the drawing program did not apparently have a helicopter icon, so way to switch out.
So
It's a very
I have a
accurate
question.
representation.
I have a question for Mia.
course.
And also Robin, when you do presentations to the public, is it more beneficial to have 3, or would it be better to just have 2 and therefore narrow down and really make it between 2?
I think 3 would be fine. If there's nothing that anybody's really adverse to on the second concept, I think 3 would be fine. It just gives the community more options, I guess. But it's really ultimately up to you. The intent of the community meeting that'll be in person is to open it up, and we will share and walk through the options, whether that's 2 or 3. We will have them also, we'll probably maybe simplify the photo boards a little bit. And so it's kind of like, and give them the opportunity to vote on some of their favorite amenities. And that will also help us really kind of hone in on the amenities that they're most interested in. And then we will also have them kind of vote on their favorite concepts. But we also like to, and many of you have worked with us before, but have them kind of sit together at tables and do a little bit of a workshop format where we give them some questions that they work through and talk through together, and then report out at the end of the meeting. So we get a little more than I like that or don't like that. And we kind of have opportunity to dig into the why and kind of the things that are a little deeper about that. And so that would be our intent to that meeting. So we're happy to share 2, 3. We can certainly, if there was something in if you wanted to share 3, but you wanted to take the labyrinth out of that second one, because we already have that, we can certainly do that as well. So we can make some tweaks and modifications as well, if you'd like. So that's definitely what we'd love to get direction from you on, and then we'll make those changes for that community meeting.
Okay, may I offer my little input as,
Yes.
well, just as me, I guess. I really like, the second concept, the blossoming journey. And one of the reasons why I really like that one is because it's more organic to my design eye. And I really like that the tall shade structures, which are going to be 10 to 12 feet tall, are located more out of the view shed of Engelman Canyon.
Mhm.
I really like that. And I also really like that where the sculpture is, it looks like it's a prayer circle, the way it's designed. And that's something that Manny was really wanting to kind of create around his sculpture, was like a prayer circle that would provide a space for the indigenous people to be able to gather there. And I don't know, yeah, if you can come up with something other than the labyrinth or something, I mean, because I know we already have the labyrinth in that one Wheeler Park, and it hasn't really gotten a rave reviews or anything.
Mhm.
But I do like the parking lot configuration in the first design, the ripple, because all the cars are pointing toward the storage unit, at least the front row, and you can access Topeka Road from that direction as well. And it's not so much on the edge of the view shed on the west side where
Mhm.
the second one has the cars located. So I guess I like the cars more kind of located, looking at the other parking lot that Adventures Out West is doing and looking at the storage units.
Mhm.
And then with number 3, you all know how I feel about concrete.
I know. I know. I
mean,
put it in there just as an option to talk about. I know. It's
We
an
had that
absolutely
discussion.
yes.
right. So that's my main objection.
Yep.
Is the concrete, but also that the shade structure that's located right on the peak there in front of the prayer
Mhm.
circle rock structure would really impede the view. So that's another reason. And then to me, you know, I know what you're saying about the figure 8, but I guess I'm more of a kind of a organic flowing kind of girl. I guess that's why I like 1 and 2, those designs better. And then
The
I,
the
go ahead.
infinity
No, go
kind
ahead.
of circle, the
Yeah.
one thing that it does speak to is that, like, the idea of memory, it helps your memory kind of going from following the same path and ending up in the same location.
Mm-hmm.
But those are good comments. So it sounds like potentially we want to keep all 3 with maybe some modification to that labyrinth. Is that where we're going? And we'll also modify the parking on any of these to make sure we're not crossing that other property as well.
Right.
Yeah, and I would leave the view shed from the prayer circle and the rock garden as unobstructed as possible. Like I like
Sure.
in that second one, you maintain the regular typical benches
Mhm.
the way they are now on the overlook, and that wouldn't impede it. But having a huge 10-foot structure right there
Sure.
on the edge, I think
And
would
this
really
one has a shade structure here, and this overlook could still work without a shade structure on top of it. And I think that would be a pretty minor change if that's the direction everyone agrees in. And then this one, I think that could also be altered if everyone's feeling strongly about impeding the view.
Or it could shift too. It could shift around that edge as well, kind of moving north a
True.
little bit.
True. Yep.
And I would just like to revisit what Matthew was talking about as far as our lack of water, and it would be people power that would come and keep things alive. I want things that would be living, but I don't want things that are dead. So that over time, things look great, except all these dead things. So
Mhm.
that's a concern. We don't want to foster dead stuff. Otherwise, I would like to keep the infinity thing too. So the labyrinth can go, but I like the infinity structure as an option. And as far as feedback from the community.
Mhm. Yeah, and also maybe the hawk boxes, we should have them facing the east. Because right now they're facing the west.
Mhm.
Is there research on that as far as what's successful?
Honestly, my thought process there was that it would, if I was a hawk, I would want to see the view overlooking a lower point and not too close to the highway.
Mhm.
That's why I was asking.
I
Yeah,
would think
we
more
could,
than anything, you probably want the entrance out of the wind, but that's about it.
right, and if there was a helicopter landing too, keeping it far from that as much as possible. But we could do a little more research on hawk behavior and where the ideal place to nest would be.
Okay.
Okay. Jillian, do you have any comments?
I really like concept 3. I love the infinity pathway. I also like the concepts where the composting toilet is closer to the park. I feel like if it's extremely visible from the road, it might be used for extracurricular activities. So I think that is a good choice, having it closer to the park, not so removed. I like the concepts where the helipad is closest to Higginbotham Road. So that way, if police and fire need to access the pad, they don't have to go into the parking lot. If it's a super busy day, they can just pull up on Higginbotham Road and have access to the helipad from there. And I'd love to get their perspective on each of these when it comes to the parking in relation to where that helipad is also. So I'll try to make sure that they are either at the community engagement event, or I'll just send them these concepts to get their feedback. Because I definitely want them to be comfortable with wherever we put that pad. But yeah, I think all 3 are great. I agree, we probably don't need another labyrinth in the park system. Although we are hoping to revamp the labyrinth in Wheeler Park. But I think all 3 concepts would be great to bring to the community engagement event.
Okay, great.
Barb, how would you feel if we changed the infinity to like a crusher fines path instead of concrete?
Sounds good.
Was that Rebecca?
Yeah, that's Rebecca. That's fine. And I think having 3 designs is great for the community. Just if you could maybe switch that the labyrinth to something else. And then
Sure.
just to simplify it a little bit for them. So maybe because you have so many really rad images for like the hawk boxes and stuff. So maybe just simplify a few of those so they don't have all the options, which they'd all be cool, but sure, baby.
Yeah, good point.
So I have one comment, I guess in support of potentially leaving the concrete concept. And that is, when it snows in the winter, we don't plow or shovel the crusher fine paths. We would shovel the concrete. So we could have more accessibility in this park if we left the path, or if we had some sort of a concrete path in the park, as opposed to the crusher fine path, which folks would just have to walk on the snow and kind of weave their way around. So just wanted to add that accessibility lens We would be able to plow if there was, or shovel if there was concrete, but not if there's crusher fine on the ground. So just something to think about.
And to that, Julian, we get so much sun up there that the water, the snow would melt into the crusher fines much quicker than it would on the cement. It would probably, you know, melt and then freeze and then cause ice and stuff like that. So that's my other thing too, is not to have concrete up there. It's like permeable surfaces would be the quickest way for it to dry up there. And I don't think we really need to do that much of maintenance to shovel the paths or to shovel the crusher fine path, because it'll absorb and, you know, melt on its own. That's my 2 cents.
Are we open to sharing a different material with the community to get their input?
I think that'd be a good idea.
Do you mean sharing the concrete or sharing crusher
Well,
fines?
just leaving it, yeah, so there's a couple options. We have concrete and we have crusher fines in the different options. And, you know, that can be part of the feedback that we get from them on that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what the community has to say. I mean, as much of an advocate as I am for accessibility, I sort of see this park as more of a kind of a interface with the wild, like the open space.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like perhaps we could just post a sign that says, you know, this is a low maintenance park. And, you know, just to sort of set expectations around it,
Mhm.
if we wanted to go that direction.
Well,
Yeah,
that
one-
was, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Danu.
I was just gonna say that was our original intent with this park, was to have it be low maintenance,
Mhm.
so that we wouldn't put more burden on staff to maintain it.
Yeah, one thing we're not showing on here, and I did mention we were mainly using kind of the existing materials for the parking. We would typically, if you're formalizing a parking lot, you would put in I think this would only warrant 1, maybe 2 accessible spaces. So those would be, you would have either asphalt or concrete for that. Typically we do concrete. So just something to note.
And the composting toilet probably needs to be on a concrete pad.
It would, yeah. Yeah, it actually has a vault below it, so, but usually you have a concrete pad in front of it to make sure you don't get erosion around the facility and have any issues with, you know, access into it. So there would be a little bit of concrete at a minimum just to provide that.
But we could also use asphalt for you're talking about the accessibility, the handicap parking spaces, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, it could be asphalt or concrete. Concrete is actually generally less maintenance because asphalt, you know, tends to move a little more.
Mm-hmm.
So just to be clear about what we're showing, concrete versus crusher fines on concept 3, are we wanting to keep the concrete and just ask the question, or show it as crusher fines and then ask if the community would
That would
prefer
be
one
my,
material or another?
of course, that would be my vote, Mia. Of course.
Just want to make sure we're all comfortable with what we're showing to the
Yeah, because
community.
I have a thing about concrete. Plus, it's more expensive too. 'Cause I'm also
is.
trying to think
Yeah.
of costs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When we develop the park, I'm trying to think of like what amenities do we want to keep and what ones can we cut to try to minimize the cost of building the park, the low maintenance park. So that's the other thing.
So maybe we show it as crusher fines and then just ask the question.
Yeah,
crusher fine versus
is that
concrete.
okay with everybody?
That's good with me. I'd prefer the crusher fines.
Yeah,
I
me
guess I'm
too.
just curious about sort of the, what Jillian and the park staff run into in terms of like their obligation or legality to the community in terms of maintaining it.
I will also note on this one, I briefly touched on it, but we do drop about a foot down to this little viewing platform. So there is a little bit of a slope there. It's not a ramp, it's just less than 5%, but it's still a slope. So thinking about that too, as you're sloping down, safety wise, if it's easier to maintain and shovel as concrete versus crusher fines, but
Yeah, Jillian, do you want to weigh in on that?
On the maintenance versus concrete, or sorry, the
yeah.
maintenance on concrete versus crusher pine. Well,
I think that was
in the
Chris's
winter,
question.
yeah, in the winter, crusher fine is low maintenance because we're not going to be up there plowing or shoveling. So that eliminates that from our plow schedule. Or shovel. I say plow and shovel interchangeably because we use both on the sidewalks and throughout the park system that has concrete trails. And then really it's just re-adding material every so often to the crusher fine paths, like we just did in Shriver Park, and making sure they're free of any vegetation growing in them. But I'd say maintenance wise, they're about the same. A crusher fine are more likely to collect water if they are sinking in any areas, but it would just be general upkeep that we'd be focusing on. So I'd say they're about the same. Like we'd be edging the concrete path if there was one going through there. So I think they even out.
Okay. So it sounds like, just to recap on changes, we're gonna keep all three options. In this option here, option 3, we will change the concrete to crusher fines for the trail. And
Can we move the shade structure
Oh, yeah,
off the peak?
that one.
and we're gonna,
Mhm.
and we're gonna remove that shade structure. And then for any of the parking concepts that do show connecting across the property, we're gonna modify that. And then in option 2, we are going to remove the labyrinth and we'll replace that with something. And let me just look at my notes. And then we're gonna reduce the image boards a little bit to simplify, kind of focus on that specific amenity associated with that versus kind of a variety, which is in line with what we would be heading towards for that community meeting too, where we use them also for kind of voting on their preferred amenities. Does that sound like captured everything that we heard?
Yeah, and I like the concept of not having a bajillion parking spaces also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll have some options on that, I think, because we have sort of 3 different versions of that.
Yeah, we'll be losing spaces on this one and on this one just because of crossing that property and needing to make the turning radius and shaving some of those. So
One thing I was gonna ask for the community meeting, will you show images of Manny's work so they can get a sense of that? It's not an option
yeah.
for them, but just so they can see kind of the impetus for a lot of this.
Yes, we will.
Cool.
We'll share a little bit about that too when we give the presentation on the options.
We'll also add a green wall in one of the concepts to Matthew's comment earlier as well.
What is a green wall?
It would help block sound from the highway in addition to the berms. Berms are actually very effective in blocking noise, but anywhere where there's maybe an opening, here we had a berm next to the existing berm, and so, maybe we'd have an additional wall or something just to help block some of that additional sound.
Mhm.
I don't
And
think it would need to
Matthew,
stretch the full
yeah,
extent of the
think,
property, but
sorry, Mia.
no, go ahead, Robin.
I was thinking, just to clarify too, the wall, I mean, I think there's what Matthew's thinking of is more of like a green wall. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking, planting a spruce, a Balpin fir, something like that, that's continuous canopy to the bottom would further
Oh,
kind of break up that noise.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
and those go well with a berm too. So you have that
Yeah, and if you just put a
year-round
line of
vegetation.
overplanted blue spruce on the top, it'll suck up a ton of noise. That's what I'm
Except
trying
they
to do
like
in one of my
water,
parks to
Matthew.
limit success. Huh?
They like water though, those spruces.
I'm aware. All right, I'll be quiet now. Back to the painting.
I think he said he was gonna water them. I think I heard that right.
Thank you for clarifying that. I misunderstood.
Yeah. Okay. So does everybody feel pretty good about that direction? And we're gonna help Jillian put together a flyer for that community meeting coming up. And otherwise, I know we have the place and the time. So anything you all can do to help get the word out too, we appreciate. The more, the better on our end.
May I ask one other question?
Yeah.
Is it, is this a situation where we might try to work with CDOT to do a noise analysis and see if CDOT would put any barriers in?
Ooh. I wouldn't go there.
Why
I
not?
wouldn't go
There's
there
federal,
because
there's federal law that if sound is impacting a community, they have to. And that, I'm not sure that would be any skin off of our back. But then again, I have no experience with actually how that process works. But
Like
still,
having it adjacent to the highway up here.
yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I
And
think
I think
it's,
having berms anyway are nice from a visual standpoint, but from a sound standpoint, we might be able to maximize our resources by having somebody else pay for some of this.
I'm afraid of what CDOT would come up with. I'm afraid it would be so ugly. So I appreciate what you're saying, Matthew, but I would prefer just to keep it as natural. My whole
That was
thing
Tim.
with this whole concept is to keep it as natural as possible and low maintenance. I guess that's my thing, and to have just a
You
really
mean
nice.
natural like a highway? Is that what you're talking about? Just curious on what the natural part is, what we're talking about right now, because I'm talking about the highway.
I know, but I mean, I guess.
I don't want to I don't think that CDOT would put a barrier on our overlook. I think it would probably be highway adjacent, but just asking, I don't have any experience with that project. I just know that there are rules and regulations regarding noise mitigation, and that may be something that might be worthwhile looking into because again, that would be a CDOT expense, not ours, and might help us.
Really quick, when you said it's October 3rd, but can you give us more details of the time and place?
it's from 6 to 8. And I can't remember the
It's in
place.
Memorial Hall. It's at City
Yeah,
Hall.
that's right. Yeah.
Thanks.
And Danu cannot be there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sorry. And also, I won't be at the next October meeting, either, so Tim's gonna be chairing that meeting.
There will be an online survey 2 weeks after the event for those that aren't able to make it.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
I think
I
we went
think-
over our 15-minute
Yeah.
agenda time slot. Sorry about that.
Well, I think
All right.
we went over our 15-minute agenda time slot. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. You guys are special.
Absolutely. I just have one little thing to add is that years ago when this space was used as a community garden, there was a water
Tanks.
tank
Yeah.
on site. So
And
I'm not sure if that,
they
yeah,
filled it with the fire hydrant that's located over by the storage units. But they had they had these old fire hoses and they would like hook it up to the fire hydrant. And then they had these two big water tanks and they would, have to fill up the water tanks to water the community garden. And it was a pretty monumental effort just to get water to the tanks through the hoses, and it was a process.
Yeah, it sounded
Okay.
like from Matthew, maybe just if he was, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Matthew, but it seemed like you're gonna have a water tank. You probably just bring it up on the truck, like your truck mounted water tank to water. I mean, I guess if there was a way to put tanks up here, it could be something where, maybe the community gets engaged in helping too, but I don't know if that's feasible or not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. It'd just be a 275 gallon tank running loads of water up from the shop.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, sounds good. So we'll be working with Jillian for the logistics of the meeting and everything, but we look forward to meeting with your community and getting some feedback. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for Mia and Robin? Julian, do you have any other thing that we might have missed here? I don't
I
think
don't think
so.
so. Once we get the flyer, I'll send that to our PIO and we'll make any edits, then we'll get it sent out and publicize the event.
And then Robin, do you need PARAB to kind of check these special meeting dates to see if we can at least get a
Yeah.
quorum?
Yep, that would be great. And then we can adjust the schedule accordingly. But I believe, if I remember right, was there funding for Manny's sculpture that kind of hinged on us getting this done before the end of the year, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Match.
okay.
It's a stipulation. Yeah.
So that's what we want to work to keep, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let us know. I know it's, we prefer if we can hit your dates that you already have scheduled, but that's kind of ran up against that there.
Mhm. Okay.
So yeah, we'll send that out and then, yeah, Danu and Jillian, just let us know and we'll work around anything we need to.
Okay, great.
Sounds
Thanks.
good.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys.
Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, item 6, reports. We have the arborist report. Matthew, do you want to go ahead and address your report that you attached in our packet?
Yes, I have a handful of trees for y'all to look at tonight, provide feedback on. May I share my screen, please?
Yes.
Alrighty, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. So I apologize, it's been a while since we've done a proper arborist report. I'll try to be as brief as I can. I also apologize, I've been traveling all day, so my brain is a little fuzzy. So anyways, what I have for y'all tonight is just an update on some grants we got this year, and then some tree risk assessments I conducted recently on some trees that are in pretty rough shape. Just a little reminder on the tree committee responsibility, PARAB responsibilities. And what I'm asking y'all for mostly tonight is the second last item. Advise the removal or replacement of trees when feasible. So we try not to just, go rogue and cut down a tree unless I absolutely don't have a chance. So grant update. We got 2 grants this year. One was from the Manitou Springs Urban Renewal Authority. That was $5,000 for planting of trees along the Creek Walk path. The planting is done. The trees have been reasonably successful for the amount of care we've been able to provide. I'm going to close that out by the end of September. The second grant we got was from the Colorado Tree Coalition, and that was a $2,500 grant for the purchase and planting of trees in the Crystal Valley Cemetery on Arbor Day. And that's a 50-50 grant match where we put in $2,500 and they put on $2,500. So we had a successful Arbor Day. We planted like 35 trees in the cemetery this spring, which is pretty exciting. And that grant will also be closed out by the end of September. So just a little refresher on tree risk assessments. So this is a thorough and methodical process of evaluating a tree, which results in a risk rating. We did a whole thing on it a while back, but it's an International Society of Arboriculture certified or accredited process. They developed the process, and it is legally defensible. So it's pretty robust. It must be conducted by an ISA certified arborist. I am, who holds the tree risk assessment qualification, which I do. The risk ratings will come back as low, moderate, high, or extreme. And per previous guidance from you all, PARAB the Tree Board, we were authorized as staff to remove any high or extreme risk trees without being consulted. But after I did evaluate a couple of these trees just based on how visible they are and how large they are, I wanted to bring it to y'all's attention for discussion prior to moving forward. So here's a sheet we use for the tree risk assessment. Like I said, it's very thorough, talking about different parts of the trees, different targets, different risk ratings. And we use the matrix on the top right hand of the right sheet to quantify our risks based on likelihood of an impact and the consequence of failure. So the first tree that we did was a large crack willow next to the Mate place downtown. The reason that I conducted this tree risk assessment is I've been contacted by a number of citizens about this tree. Folks on the street, the Mate people, and a couple of private citizens. And it's something that I've observed declining for the last 2.5 years since I joined the city. And I apologize for the little gray box. There was a person in there I didn't want to put on the internet forever. I conducted the tree risk assessment on the 28th of August, so just a week or so back. So the issues of note that I observed while doing the tree risk assessment and while driving past this tree several times a day, just in the course of work, is there's a lot of pedestrian traffic in this area. Obviously, there's vehicular traffic. The road is there. There's a brand new art piece, and there's some landscaping and other trees as well. This tree exhibits substantial deadwood and evidence of decline. And it has substantial weighting and leaning towards the street and the sidewalk. Like all of the weight of this tree is growing towards the road. And 90% or greater of the canopy appears to be advantageous growth. So that's suckering growth, not your regular linear growth patterns like you see in a happy, healthy tree. So crack willows are prone to twig, branch, and whole tree failure in Manitou Springs. Every time it gets windy, or even on blue sky days, these trees do tend to fail in large and small ways. It is worth noting that multiple willows in similar or better condition have failed in Manitou in the last 12 months, and I've got photos of those for your consideration. So you can see it's in the left photo, it's got a very constrained growing location. It's got its feet right in the river, and then the other side is the rock wall. So there's not a lot of soil volume to speak of. The tree's been successful despite that. I apologize, these photos aren't the best, but the canopy is almost entirely advantageous growth on the right hand side there. Like I said, normally you'll see kind of linear outward growth in a tree that is being successful and healthy. But if a tree starts to decline or is stressed, you'll get a lot of advantageous bud growth, which just pops out wherever there's enough stimulus from light for that bud to start to go. Yeah, I apologize for the photos. The best I could do with my cell phone. The left-hand photo there, you can see a 12, 14-inch branch, which has started to separate from the tree. Not great. and the right-hand photo, there's a 12 to 16-inch lead of the tree that is completely dead. And it's got cavities for nesting birds and the like. So that's over the river. Less concern about impact to citizens or traffic, but more concern about damming up the river and causing flooding issues. So these are the 2 trees that I talked about that I've had to remove in the last 12 months from Manitou. One was on Lover's Lane. You may have heard about it. This was a blue sky tree failure. There was no extreme weather event. The tree just went. That tree took me 6 days to cut out of the river and the road, but we got it done. And you can see the canopy on that tree is pretty healthy. And then this is one that happened this spring at Shriver Park. Again, this tree was in pretty decent condition. Healthy canopy, no evidence to basal rot or any sort of decay. And it just went. This one might have been during a slightly higher wind event, but it was not unusual weather conditions. So I conducted the tree risk assessment on the 27th, and this tree risk assessment came back as a high risk tree. So we kind of have 2 options moving forward. We can prune out the deadwood 4-inch and larger. That's kind of a standard deadwood prune or a hazard reduction prune, or we could remove the tree and offset the loss with planting in 2025. My recommendation with this tree is to remove it. All the weighting is towards the road. It's a high risk tree, and when it goes, there's going to be substantial impact to life, property, or even just mobility. If it blocks the road right next to the Ruxton roundabout, there's going to be some pretty heavy impacts to just regular life activities. Like I said, it's got a really heavy weighting, and all of the growth on this tree is pretty much advantageous growth. This tree is just pretty much at end of life. If it was on the other side of the river in Fields Park, it wouldn't concern me because that failure wouldn't have nearly the consequences. But given where it is and its proximity to all those activities and people, it does, I think, warrant removal. If we did do the deadwood removal, so 4-inch and larger on this tree, you're going to have a 50-foot stump with suckers growing out of it. Just not really best practice, because that whole stem is probably going to, well, it will have expedited decay. And we're going to have to remove that stump in the near future anyways before it presents a life safety risk. So that's the first tree I have for you. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
Are you talking about the tree with the sun shining on it?
That's correct. And I apologize, my photos are not very good, but this tree it's all suckers. There's no tip growth. I don't know if you can see in my photos here, but there's a large dead section that is over the road, over the sidewalk, and over the that art piece, and it is completely gone. The bark has come off that, so it's been dead for years. And this tree worries me, just given its proximity to a high traffic area and a high people area.
Matthew, why don't you go ahead and continue on with the rest of your trees here?
Okay, so yeah, this tree, I've been taking photos of it for the last, well, 2.5 years since I got here, and I've got documentation that it's losing canopy. So it's starting to go, and I think it's probably time we take it down before a windstorm does, or a snowstorm, or whatever it is. So the second tree I have for you all, it's a 100-odd-year-old silver maple. I believe it's on, Grand Avenue. The reason for the tree risk assessment was a citizen contact. The individual that lives to the left of this tree, as pictured, has contacted me 3 or 4 times regarding this tree, concerned about failure onto their property, the road, cars, etc. And it's one of the trees I've kind of noticed just in the course of normal work. So I conducted the tree risk assessment on this tree on the 26th of August. The issue to note on this tree are the frequency of targets in the area. That silver Ford Escape or whatever it is, it's been there every single time I've been past. Neighborhood chipping, snow removal, whatever it is. Obviously, there's the road under it, the structure of 62 grand, and there's an electrical line running through the canopy of this tree, right down the middle of it. There's substantial deadwood in this tree as well, and evidence of decline. You can see all the dead tips. There's still some decent material on the top of the tree, but almost all of the healthy growth is on the bottom of that tree, evidence of decline. And there is a 4 or 6 inch diameter deadwood piece that hangs right over that silver car SUV, which is not great. Silver maples are more prone to branch failures, not generally whole tree failures, but I have seen it when the trunk is substantially compromised or decayed. I did observe some fungal fruiting bodies, mushrooms at the base of this tree. Mushrooms at the base of the tree is not good news, because that means there's some sort of fungus present. It may not be in the tree, but it's nearby, which can predispose the tree to either whole tree trunk failure, or the root plate can lift up and the tree can fail that way. So those are the mushrooms I told you about. I'm not savvy enough to identify them. I didn't, go into the weeds on what type of mushroom they are, but a mushroom on or around a tree is not generally a good sign. So that's that large branch that I talked about that's hanging over the silver SUV. It's been broken for some time and is mostly detached. At the very least, we need to remove this branch before it fails. So the tree risk assessment came back on this tree as a high risk tree. We have the same 2 options as the crack willow in the previous slide or slide deck. Remove the deadwood forage and larger. So that's going to be the whole top of the tree, a lot of the sides. It'll buy us some time. And that would reduce the risk of this tree to moderate instead of high. So that is an option. And we could also remove this tree and offset the loss with planting in 2025. So my recommendation for this tree is its removal. And that's due to the extensive deadwood, the fungal fruiting bodies, the presence of the electrical line through the tree, and the proximity of targets. If this tree fails, it's probably going to tear the electrical line off the posts. That would not be good. And like I said, silver maples really like to lose big branches in adverse weather conditions. So the last one is kind of more of a batch, and just to get you all to understand my ethos and how I normally handle declining trees in the Crystal Valley Cemetery. The reason for the tree risk assessment on these trees, or sorry, specifically just this one tree in front of us, pictured on the right, is they're gone. The whole canopy is gone. We're at 100% canopy loss, and this is normally where we need to remove a tree. So like I said, I did a tree risk assessment on this tree to the right. That's a silver maple, probably about 100 years old. And the tree risk on this tree came back as low. It's kind of an interesting finding, but that's due to the likelihood of impact to a headstone is moderate, but not high or extreme. And the likelihood of an impact to a car or a pedestrian or something like that is very low. It's a pretty low occupancy area. So we have a couple of options with these large declining or dead silver maples. We can prune it back to a main stem or branches to allow for wildlife habitat. Cavity nesters like to use silver maples. A lot of these trees already have some habitat present. It's not going to change the risk rating. It'd still be a low risk, or we could always remove these trees and replace them, as we have started to do in the Crystal Valley Cemetery. So this is where I'm kind of asking for guidance from PARAB, my tree board. Usually what I do when a tree in the cemetery gets at 90 or 100% canopy loss, that's when I remove that tree. That's out of an effort to be respectful for folks that have loved ones buried there, and to, reduce the city's liability to crushing a headstone. Beyond the disrespect, that would be an enormous liability for us. Headstones are pretty tough. That's part of my logic for leaving trees to when they're 90 or 100% canopy lost. To date, I haven't had any damage from a tree, partial or whole tree failure in the cemetery. So like I said, the likelihood of impact to a target is medium. It's probably not going to hit something, but it could. So that's where I'm just kind of asking, like, we have the tree on the left here. or probably at 60 or 70% canopy loss, all the dead limbs in the top of the canopy, obviously they're gone. And I'm kind of asking for guidance. Do you want me to wait for 100% canopy loss or 90% canopy loss? Would you like me to print out the dead wood just to kind of reduce that liability, that likelihood of failure? How do you all feel about that? And then I have trees that are kind of starting down the decline spiral in this slide. Normally what I do is I'd either leave this tree be or just prune out kind of some of the smaller dead wood so it doesn't fall out, cause any damage or hurt anything. So like I said, this is more of I'm asking for guidance as to how my tree board would like to be perceived with the trees in the cemetery. So I already said that, but. And no matter what we do with these trees, whether these be the cemetery trees, the willow, the silver maple, we're always going to try to recycle every bit of that tree back into the community. The wood chips are made available to the community, hollow logs. So a lot of times we just leave them on site for ecosystem services like habitat or bug hotels. We're spooling up to do more milling of large woods. We can create slabs to give back to the community, for whatever purpose that might be, or big logs. Occasionally I just put them into a hillside and allow them to be natural erosion control. And of course firewood as well too. There's a lot of these trees that's probably the best use of that material is for the tree to go back and to keep folks warm. So that's all I have. Again, questions, concerns, comments on any of these three issues, please.
Well, this is Chris, and the tree by the Mate Factor seems extremely concerning for, if that were to fall and harm a human. You were talking about the liability of the city with a headstone. The liability of harming a human seems much greater. And as a nurse, my first responsibility is always humans. So I know that other people feel differently about trees, but I don't know, I'm pretty partial to humans. So I think if we're concerned that that could harm somebody, I think it definitely should go. And same with one, if it's going to take down power lines, which could potentially start a fire, that seems concerning. And these ones in the cemetery that you're showing us look totally dead. And I pretty much trust your opinion. So I think if you think they should go, they likely should go. But I know that there is a large spectrum of opinions on this. And so but that's my opinion.
Thank you. And I was just try to balance, every tree has benefits, every tree has risks. And it's only at the point where the tree's risks outweigh its benefits that I consider removal, because there's a lot of trees in town that are not great, but they're still reasonably sound. The likelihood of failure is low to moderate. And I would like to keep those trees in the community as long as I can. But I'm with you. I don't want somebody getting clobbered by a tree when it fails, or somebody's car being crushed, or Manitou Avenue being blocked by a tree. That would be bad. So it's I always try to balance all those different factors as I'm looking at these. I promise I'm not just running around with a chainsaw.
I'm good with your recommendations. This is Tim Bresnan. I think removal where you say removal. It seems like if we're looking at significant canopy loss, maybe, removal. If it seems like we're not quite to the significant level, pruning sounds good too.
Yeah, I agree. Just remove, this is Rebecca, just remove those ones that you noted that need to be removed, and then maybe like those last few that you showed, not this one that's up, but yeah, like those last three, yeah, maybe just prune those up as best you can just to see if it can do anything, and then that way you can remove all those others, like the one right behind the one on the left. That probably should go, and yeah, but we trust you.
No, thank you. That's what I did. I just wanted to be a conversation, you know, I'm not just, you know, you all, the community are surprised I'm out there doing stuff. Want to make sure that you all, as my tree board, are aware of my activities and, but no, I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
I'm always an advocate to prune first and try to save the tree as much as we can. But I also understand what you're saying too about risk and I just you know, we had to lose all those trees from the library, and the community is still really smarting from that. And I just know that if we start cutting down more trees, it's well, it's going to be an issue for a lot of the people in the community. So I don't know if we could get by with just pruning them, and then where you could eliminate most of the risk, that would be the way I would go too. But I also, you know, agree with everybody else about, you know, deferring to you about if you really think that we need to cut him down. But that would be my first go-to, would be to prune the larger branches and get out the hazardous ones, or try to make the tree less dangerous.
Okay. Cause yeah, I guess my gut and my professional opinion is that still, that big willow, it's time. And I don't like that. That's very sad. It's a huge tree. It's been there a long time, but I'm afraid of what that tree might do to somebody or something. The silver maple on Grand, I might be able to get up there and prune some out. That'll be dictated by the tree's structure when I'm eye level with it and the bucket truck or climbing it. I might be able to save that tree, but it's going to be how it's growing over the electrical line and how it's growing over the structure. But I will keep that in mind as I do work these trees. And yeah, the trees in the cemetery, I can always just cut the big dead tops out, and they might look a little goofy, but we can keep them for a while longer if that's the direction we want to go. Alrighty, folks. Well, thanks for your time. If there's not anything else, I'll let you get on with the rest of your meeting. I appreciate you talking about trees with me tonight.
Okay, thank you, Matthew.
Thanks for the report, Matthew. Really well done.
Oh, thank you. I try. All right, I'm going to rattle off. Everybody have a good evening.
Okay, thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, so we have the Park and Rec Advisory Board report. Somebody noticed there was damage to the Manazoo structure in Memorial Park, and I contacted Steve Wood from Concrete Couch because they are the ones who created that sculpture. And he said that they're $200 now to repair their stuff, and he thought maybe it would take maybe 10 hours. So he suggested maybe approaching a few other people to ask if they would be interested to do the repairs, artists in town. And I also thought about approaching Crane and talking to Audrey Gray to see if she had any artists that could go ahead and maybe submit a price to repair the Manazoo. It's yeah, I don't know. It's I don't know if you guys want to just stay with Steve Wood with Concrete Couch, since they're the ones who originally, you know, have been doing all the work on it, or if you guys would feel okay about reaching out to Crane and seeing if another artists, they might know some other artists who might be able to repair the damage. I don't have a picture of it.
So Danu, I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
interject.
Go ahead.
We've had the damage on Manitou reported, I think 5 times over the past couple of weeks. So
Yeah.
I have already reached out to Crane, and
Okay.
Audrey's contacting the 2 artists who did Manitou originally. Steve doesn't have time right now to do the
Right.
repairs, and he also recommended reaching out to the artists. So I'm
Right.
waiting to hear back from them. And as soon as I do, we'll move forward on repairs. Because it's just going to keep getting worse. It's really, you can almost reach up and pry other pieces off because of how it's chipped. So
Right.
we're working on that right now.
Well, I know Harriet. Harriet's pretty elderly, and I don't think she is going to be interested to do that. And then he did mention another artist, but I don't know who that was. But I mean, that man who's been there for years, and a lot of the people who created that or first original are kind of elderly now. And, so yeah, so if Audrey's got some other, artists who might be able to keep in keeping with that, I could ask, or maybe we could ask around for different galleries too, like, Green Horse Gallery. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Jillian. Some other
Yeah,
potters who could create the tile or whatever to kind of fill in.
yeah. If anyone has any other suggestions, definitely let us know. But we'd like to get it repaired before winter. That's the goal.
Right, right. Yeah. So Jillian, I'll approach a few people I know who do ceramics, and see if they'd be interested to take on that project as well. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
No, no, I'll keep you in the loop, eh? Okay. Natalie's not here tonight. We have open space, no available minutes. So Jillian, why don't you take it from here with your report?
Yeah, I just have a few updates for everybody. So we are in the process of interviewing new cemetery caretakers. Our former cemetery caretaker, Aaron, is now our forestry technician. So he's working with Matthew and really excited about the new role, pivoting from the cemetery. So we have a couple of folks interested in the position who we're interviewing later this week and then early next week. We also have the foundation poured for the columbarium that's going into the Crystal Valley Cemetery. So if you drive into the cemetery and look to the right by the flagpole, you'll see this big concrete circle, and that's the base for where the columbarium's going to be placed after the concrete is done setting in 28 days. So we're really excited for that. And as a reminder, the columbarium was a donation from a couple of Manitou Springs residents, and a very big donation. So we're excited for that. The locker room remodel is going well at the pool. We have the fitness center open. The pool is closed during the locker room remodel. It's really, I don't know if we could get PARAB a tour, but if you walk in, everything's basically gutted right now out of the 2 locker rooms. And then we're building a family changing room / locker room in the back. So everything's been gutted. You can see all the layers of paint from the previous years, and there were some pretty funky colors going on underneath all those layers. That's kind of cool to see. Soda Springs Park Phase 2, we did receive our bids last Friday for construction, so we'll be reviewing the bids and then selecting a contractor within the next week. And we have been asked to delay construction until after coffin races, if at all possible, just to start after the last major event of the year. And Danu, I'll see if we can start procuring those playground equipment pieces as soon as we select a contractor to get that moving. And then we already covered this, but the Higginbotham Flats Master Plan Community Engagement event is October 3rd at Memorial Hall, starting at 6 p.m. It would be great to have some PARAB representation. Danu, I know you can't be there, but if you could let Save the Flats know, we'd really love to have representation from at least all of our stakeholders, and then hopefully a ton of residents from Manitou Springs. And that's everything on my list.
Okay, great. Any questions for Jillian? Okay, then, new business. Colin mentioned that he wouldn't be able to be present at the rest of our meetings for this year. And so I asked Elena, our city clerk, what protocol was. And according to our ordinance, if a member of one of the boards misses 3 consecutive meetings, that lays ground for dismissal from the board. So the way to be able to grant Colin further membership with PARAB would be for PARAB to vote on a leave of absence for Colin. Now I know this is new news for a lot of people. And so I know that I probably should contact Dave Crawford and just sort of kind of let him know. So that said, I'd like to make a motion to be able to grant a leave of absence for Colin McAllister for the remainder of this year from attending PARAB meetings, at which time he will rejoin us next year, early next year, 2025. Discussion? No, do I get a second?
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay, Anthony seconds. Okay, any discussion? Okay, then let's all vote on that then. Vote on motion to approve request of leave of absence for Colin McAllister. All in
Aye.
favor?
Sounds good to me.
Sorry, all in favor.
Yep.
Everybody, okay, thank you. Okay, is anybody opposed? Okay, then the motion passes unanimously. And then Jillian, pickleball policies, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, yeah, and I realize we don't have either of our pickleball representatives here, Jan and Colin. But let me pull up real quick what I have. We just had a suggestion from a pickleball player on some new language we might want to add to the existing signage we have at the court. And I just wanted to get, I guess, just to assess to see if PARAB had any thoughts or feelings on this. But essentially they're asking if we can make the policy clear that you can't paddle up. So you can't put your paddle on the paddle rack until you have all of your players ready to play. So the issue this person's running into is single players will put their paddle up, but still be waiting for people to get there to play with them. And other groups are there with all of their players. So I really just wanted to see if PARAB had any thoughts or opinions on this. I don't mind adding additional language, but I will add it to the website most likely. Our sign shop is in transition right now. So additional language would be added to the new web page versus physical signage for the moment.
I don't think I have any objection.
Okay.
Me neither.
Anyone
It
else?
seems like common sense, but I guess if you
No.
have to spell it out for people.
No, Chris, I was just gonna say the same thing. Like the pickleballers, I'm sorry, but they have
They seem to be very
adults.
concrete.
Be adults, figure it out. My goodness.
Okay, well, I'm glad. No, I also agree with that sentiment. We don't have rules up, at least how to play rules basically at any of our other courts. I mean, the tennis court is the best example. We have minimal rule signage there. So what I'm going to do is just add this to our website to go along with policies and not add this to our physical signage. So thank you for your comments on this.
I'm glad I was muted because I was chuckling over here pretty hard.
Same. What the heck?
Thanks, everyone. And I did tell this resident I would bring this to PARAB just to get some suggestions. So I appreciate your input.
Alrighty, thank you. Any questions for Jillian? Yeah, it would be good to get a little bit more input from other pickleball players too, because apparently I've been hearing there's another group that uses the pickleball court like frequently at set times and stuff in the morning, I think, and they kind of have like this air of ownership to them, and it's if nobody's mentioned it to you, Jillian, then I'll just let it go and wait till something's, surfaces, and then I guess we can talk about it.
I don't know. Right now, I feel reminded of the Seinfeld episode with the street toughs trying to sell the armoire.
The new folks have mentioned that there are a couple of groups that aren't necessarily always getting along in harmony on the courts. And I have responded, folks they need to work it out. It's first come, first serve. We have policies up. There's only so much we can do. We don't have enforcement for the
Right.
courts. It's just asking folks to play fair and play nice and be respectful. So that's all we can do at this point.
Okay, sounds good. All right, anybody have anything else?
I was just curious if the bathroom got repaired after the door got broken at Fields.
It did. So after that meeting, Chris, I asked our facility staff if they noticed anything going on at the restroom. They checked out the door. It seemed fine. So either, and I only did ask 2 of our 3, so it was repaired. We haven't had any further issues with the door. Are you noticing anything else?
No, I haven't been over there, but great. Maybe it was an easy fix.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks for mentioning it though.
All right,
Hey,
If
may I
there-
just add
yeah.
real quick an update on Art Walk?
sure, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, this will be real quick. The Crane put out a call for art, and they've had 7 submissions thus far, and I think are expecting a couple more. And we'll be meeting tomorrow to review the art and make decisions on selection. Once that's finished, this will be able to go to printing by next week.
Cool.
Did-
Good work.
That's awesome.
That's exciting. Good job, Tim.
Great,
At this
so,
point, Crane's doing the most of the heavy lifting, but thanks.
okay, great. So is this gonna be in the URA kind of area?
Well, Crane was able to get additional funding from URA, so it may do that. Audrey and I think Mary Snyder did a second walkthrough to select sites, and I wasn't present for that, so I don't know exactly where, but it may mean that some of the sites can extend to the west from Fields up until the overpass.
Okay, great. Great, thanks, Tim. Anything else? All right, then I'd like to adjourn our meeting at 7:56. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
All right, thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Thanks.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you. Good night.